My name is Victoria Maler. I'm a professional artist, painter, and I'm happy to welcome you to my online workshop on overcoming the art block and bringing the artistic routine into your daily life. The idea to make this workshop came to me after I noticed how often the artists of any level of experience face an art block, which basically paralyzes their productivity and creativity. In my artistic practice, I've been through many art blocks, and this is another thing to mention. No matter how professional you are, you still can face an art block on any stage of your artistic career. Therefore, it's important to know how to deal with it and what instruments we artists have to overcome it. Our goal here is to fill up the whole paper with paint. You can use gouache, acrylic or watercolor without being afraid of making something not beautiful enough. Here we should better concentrate on the process and experimenting. I'm working with fingers here, but if you decide to take a brush, then take a large one. If you are only starting with simplifying, I'd recommend taking a reference where the shapes are clearly defined by the values. Like here, we see the shapes of flowers and leaves clearly, the edges are sharp. In this image, on the contrary, it's way more difficult to define shapes and edges. Here, it would make more sense to unite the flowers in groups, defining the shapes of the groups rather than single flowers. And the more contrast light you have in the reference, the more defined shapes you get, the easier it would be to simplify. While less contrast light requires more skills in defining shapes and values, which I will actually try to perform in this video today, since my own references cover all those aspects. I start with this photo of roses I made not far away from my home. Now, since the flowers are way lighter than leaves and I see the edges very well, it makes sense to start defining their shape first. Now, I will not paint the flowers with all the details. When I simplify, I am interested in the shape of what I see and how the whole volume works in the format of the picture. By the way, did you notice that the background is actually as light as the flowers? And that is why I will add it to the flower's shape. Now, when I'm done here, I take a look at all these masses of leaves. Of course, I'm not going to show them all, but I will show some, and it will be enough for the viewer to understand that these are leaves. I will show the ones which form is defined the best way due to the dark background. And here's the trick. I will not paint the leaves, I will paint the negative space around them, and this will give me all the shapes of leaves around that negative space. Around a year ago, I couldn't even think that I would be painting nature or still lifes. I was sure I'm not that kind of an artist, and somehow I thought this was too academic and therefore boring. But as I had one of my art blocks and I literally couldn't think of any idea that looked interesting for me, yet I wanted to make something, I thought, okay, I don't know what to paint, but at least I can work on improving my skills. So I decided to give it a try and made my first still life simply out of curiosity. And you know what? I really enjoyed it. It was a very unusual process for me because I simply put the objects on the table and started painting, without thinking too much and without looking for references. This felt quite spontaneous. Why are values so important in figurative art? On our second day of the workshop, we were talking about shapes, recognizing them and bringing on paper. But you've probably noticed that although we recognize a shape, we don't have any information about its volume. It's because we see volume only with the help of light. Something is lighter and something is darker, and our brain can already get tons of information about the object from it. Now, the value is a tool that allows us to create an illusion of light in our artworks. Values define the level of lightness or darkness of the colors in the artwork. But not only this. Also, values help us to see the texture of the object and the whole light situation, and, as I mentioned before, the volume. Many young artists make that mistake by thinking that all these tasks are the tasks for the color, but I can assure you, saying it from years of my experience and loads of studied information, in figurative art, color is responsible only for one thing, and it's mood. Don't take me wrong, I don't underestimate color. I'm the one who loves color in all its power. But what happened exactly at that moment when I understood understood that color only creates mood is that it made me absolutely free in my color choice. Once again, to make recognizable objects, we need only shapes and values. If we want to make a deeper and more interesting light situation in our artworks, we should stop concentrating on the subject we draw, but start concentrating on shapes and values. And, of course, simplification. In this way, it's easier to experiment with light and colors than when we paint some particular objects. And moving from shape to shape, compared one tone with one right next to it, lighter or darker, and how much? These are two essential questions when you work with values. And while you get abstracted from the objects and paint shapes, the image comes together like a puzzle. All colors come in their best form and strength in the painting in two cases, when we work with contrast and temperature. Now with the contrast it is clear, the red looks strong when you put green near it, but the temperature is something more subtle, so basically the change of warm and cold tones, even of the same color in the painting, gives it volume, light, strength and elegance. Here I'm showing you the works of Nicolas Uribe, since in my opinion he's a master of the color temperature in painting. Now to create temperature in our palette, we need warm and cold compared to each other colors. And the full limited palette consists of light color, dark, warm and cold. Now, white color is obviously light. So the whole point of painting with limited palettes is that your colors and shades will fit to each other and stay balanced without big struggles. It's very difficult to make big mistakes in colors while working with limited palettes. While the more colors we take, the more difficult it is to keep the whole balance, and if we paint figuratively, also the values. So now we move to the practice, and we will test how many shades we can get out of two colors and a white. I will be working with the same blue and orange, but you can take any other colors. The cool thing about copying is that when we try to repeat someone's work, we often have to change the algorithm we usually use in our own works. We take different colors, maybe though that we usually would never take. We try different composition and brushwork. Trying a different way of approach immediately gives us a new perspective. This way we can also see our own works in other light.